And welcome everyone to our weekly session here discussing the AP poll on one side and the Power 36 on the other. A little Katz chat on this New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to everyone. We've had a great 2018 in college basketball, and I think 2019 is going to be even better. I want to direct you also on NCAA.com and March Madness on our Twitter and Facebook feeds and everything. We have had Chad Aycock, our tremendous Turner producer, put together just marvelous highlight package for 2018. So you got to check that out. We will retweet it hopefully here over the next day or so you can check the great moments from 2018. All right. So a couple things I want to discuss here. I'm in a bit of a time crunch this afternoon, heading up to the Providence Creighton game, 4:00 tip on FS1. So I'm in Rhode Island today. So I just want to make sure that I've been sort of all over the place, but just keep my whereabouts here for you. It's a Big East opener for both schools. Tremendous opening game in the Big East between Seton Hall and St. John's, which dovetails into some of my discussion. Of course, we're going to get to UCLA and their change just within the last hour as we're taping this, or we're live, and then you'll be able to, if you watch back of when we're actually going live here on March Madness with the removal of Steve Alford as the head coach. And then I'm going to take a couple of questions here. All right, so number one, going back to that game on Saturday, a lot of discussion about the inadvertent whistle that was blown, of course, giving Seton Hall a second chance to win that game as Shavar Reynolds, the former walk-on, hits the three-pointer at the buzzer. I mean, all these things had to go right, a little perfect storm for Seton Hall to win that basketball game. First of all, St. John's, great start, horrible finish. You blew a 14-point lead. So it's kind of hard to have all this great sympathy. Things like this, the whistle happens. You know, was it the clock didn't start, whistle blown? You know, the excuses or whatever the reasons given. Bottom line is it was tipped out of bounds, and it should have been St. John's ball, you could argue, clearly from what everyone saw. But because of the whistle, restart, Seton Hall gets one more chance, and they hit a three-pointer by a former walk-on. So it could easily have gone in St. John's favor, but they never should have been in that position. Regardless, they played well on the road until the end, which I think showed a lot. And now St. John's, let's see how they handle the rest of this week going forward, because they should be a contender for the Big East regular season title with Marquette, Villanova, and Seton Hall. Seton Hall, I think there's something special with this group because of what they have accomplished. First of all, great schedule by Kevin Willard, winning at Maryland, beating Kentucky in overtime, a game I was at MSG that was phenomenal, almost beating Louisville. I got to stop knocking the computer here. And then early in the year, they did lose to St. Louis at home, and then they did lose at Nebraska, which dovetails me into Nebraska, okay? Nebraska fans, you've been all over me. Short memory, people. Do you not remember? I was driving the bus, okay? Last June, I was all in on Nebraska. So I take them out of the Power 36 last week. You would have thought I did something so egregious to the state of Nebraska. I assessed incorrectly, and I'm admitting this here, that I was looking at other teams that were playing really well at the time, and you could argue Nebraska was playing well since that second half against Minnesota where, unmitigating circumstances for Nebraska, they walked into a very difficult situation where Minnesota, very emotional, Dupree McBrair's mother had passed away. He was still playing in the game, going to the funeral right after that. And they lose in the second half. Understandable what transpired with that. The teams they beat, decent, not great, even including Oklahoma State, which is rebuilding right now. Regardless, I probably should have had them in. They were sort of my next one out. But I wanted to make sure everyone was clear, as I said last week, and everyone's parsing every word I said right here in this forum. If you're not in the Power 36, doesn't mean you're not in the NCAA tournament, because you got to pull out the AQs. Okay, the 36 is the large number, but you got to pull out the AQs because within the 36, you have all the AQs in there. So let's say there's at least 10, okay, that are AQs in my 36. So they were going to be fine in the tournament. And yes, I had them as I think a 4 seed or something like that when I did the bracket last time, which by the way, bracket next week after the championship game in football, January 8th, Tuesday, new bracket. So reassessed, look at other things, who lost, Wisconsin losing to Western Kentucky, St. John's losing, Arizona State losing, rethinking everything. I put Nebraska back up at 25. Okay? AP has them at 24. So, sort of like a market correction here, okay? I have corrected myself on Nebraska. So let's everyone chill, calm down. Everything's fine. Nebraska, you got a big week though, okay? You are at Maryland on Wednesday. You are at Iowa over the weekend. 2 winnable games, 2 losable games. I'm not going to trash Nebraska if they lose both. I still think they're going to be fine. But those are hard games. You split that road trip, Nebraska, and you're looking pretty good to finish in the top 4 in the Big Ten, which this year, finishing 4th in the Big Ten, you are more than fine because it is the best, deepest conference in the country. Last year wasn't. This year it is. So that's my Nebraska rant. Back part of the Power 36. St. John's takes a drop. Maybe too much, but I was waiting on them because of their schedule. Arizona State, after beating Kansas at home, they ended up losing to Princeton at home. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Princeton played really well. Talked to Devin Kennedy on Saturday night before I talked to Shavar Reynolds in my travels. Love our way we've been able to sort of own this space at March Madness. There's a big shot. There's a big moment. This is the place to come, everyone, to hear from those that make the shot, that make the play. We got great cooperation from the unsung people in college basketball, college athletics, the sports information directors. I thank you publicly here, wishing all of you a happy New Year's. And I know I'm going to be working with most of you in 2019. I appreciate it because this is the place. Our viewership on these have been tremendous, and I thank you. But if you want to hear from the people that make the big shot, you come right here to March Madness, and we'll have it for you. Florida, 21-0, I think it was, to start. 3 touchdowns over Butler. By far the most shocking start to a game we saw this season. They're in the Power 36. TCU wins the Diamond Head Classic. Not a great field, but still, it's a tournament win. They were the team of the week. Tyler Harrow was the big shot maker for Kentucky in the biggest game on Saturday as they knocked off Louisville. So he was my player of the week out of Kentucky. Light schedule, obviously, with the holidays. It's going to be crazy this week. It's going to be hard to make my choices going forward with conference play beginning in earnest really today on New Year's Eve. NC State, the end of the ACC. You're going to hear Kevin Keats on my podcast, March Madness 365, talk about the Wolfpack start. Only 1 loss at Wisconsin. Tennessee's Rick Barnes will also join me on the podcast as the Volunteers, number 2 in my poll, number 3 in the AP. So not much changes here from either poll this week. I'm trying to think if there's any other major jump here over the course of the week. Not really. Mississippi State had a good win over BYU, by the way. UCLA. So I was a little surprised that UCLA made the move now, only because Dan Guerrero, athletic director at UCLA, big power broker in the NCAA. I just didn't know if you would make a move like this this early in the season. But 4 straight losses, blowout loss at Cincinnati, losing to Ohio State and Chicago, losing at home to Belmont and Liberty. Liberty was the last straw out. Murray Bartow in as the interim coach. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this job search. And, you're going to hear names like Fred Hoiberg out at Chicago with the Bulls, former Iowa State coach. Eric Musselman doing a great job in Nevada. And I wouldn't say dark horse, but a name to just think about, okay, is Billy Donovan with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But if he gets back into college basketball after the season, it'd be a great landing spot for him. Wow, what a great spot that would be for him. Enjoy the games today. A happy New Year, everyone. We will talk next Monday, day of the College Football Championship game, in advance of the next bracket, and with a whole week's worth of conference play across the country. Have a safe and happy New Year, everyone. Appreciate everyone watching, reading, digesting all our information. Take care.